What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another live fantasy football mock draft for you back on FantasyPros with a 12-team full PPR mock where we will be drafting second overall. Our roster, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then 5 bench spots. But that's pretty much it, so let's get into it. And while we wait, a quick reminder, if you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue drafting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's dive into it. The first pick has been made. Christian McCaffrey. No shock there. And now here, second overall, we've got a decision to make. Do we go with one of the tier 1 wide receivers of our choice, CD, Tyreek, Jamar Chase, etc.? Or do we go with what I still think is a viable approach, and that being drafting Breece Hall and or Bijan Robinson? Now, if this was August or September, I'd probably lean the latter. But since it's still mock draft season, we're figuring things out, let's just pull the trigger on one of these top tier wide receivers and see what we can do with the running back position later on, especially when we're drafting with one of these extreme picks, second overall, pretty early on, have to wait a long time in between selections. So we're going to go with CeeDee Lamb here. I have him slightly ranked above Tyreek Hill, so we go with that selection, and now we take a look at what we have left available to us. But before doing so, let's look at the draft board, because immediately after CD, you see Tyreek Hill. Sure, no problem there. Then Bijan Robinson, followed by Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Breece Hall, A.J. Brown, then Jahmyr Gibbs. I like to see, another running back entering the first round conversation, in this case, Jahmyr Gibbs, because typically it's only McCaffrey, Bijan, and Breece Hall, depending on the size of your leagues. Then Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson. I like Garrett Wilson. Even at the last pick overall in the first round, to me, still good value. Afterwards, Saquon, Jonathan Taylor. And then a huge run on wide receivers. Marvin Harrison, I think, with the 203 is too early. Drake London, I like him a lot there. Brendan Ayuk, Devontae Adams, who scares the hell out of me, given the situation, the age, the team, the quarterback uncertainty. Then Chris Olave, Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Evans. Now, me personally, Mike Evans, again, another player that kind of scares me, the age. I know he's had the basically every single year 1,000+ yards, but can you believe in Baker Mayfield to do it again? What happens if there's touchdown regression? It's full PPR. There's some other players that I think are tempting, basically, is what I'm saying. Looking at the cheat sheet here, though, I think this one is an open and shut case. To me, Kyren Williams is the way to go. I think he has a little bit higher upside than Travis Etienne. And even with the addition of Blake Corum, I personally like him still. So I'm going to go Kyren Williams. And if Travis Etienne is there for us, then great. And if not, we can go with a Rachaad White or a Pacheco. Even though Michael Pittman here is also kind of tempting, but I'll go with Rachaad White and secure what I think can be another, high octane PPR running back. And then since it's easier to find wide receiver value in the later rounds than it is running backs, I think we'll be fine. We've also got CeeDee Lamb kind of anchoring us at that position. So we go with Rachaad White. And if there's any, top-notch names that drop to us, we will take a look at all of them. Boy, oh boy, this was an interesting couple of rounds here. And let's break it down. So after our Kyren Williams selection, you saw Etienne, Derrick Henry. All right, that's fine. Going real running back heavy there with McCaffrey. After we went Rachaad White, Josh Allen was selected. Okay, Devon Achane, who can be, I feel like, boom or bust. Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, James Cook run on the running back position. Michael Pittman in the 308, good value in my opinion. Joe Mixon, Debo, then Trey McBride, Sam Laporta. Trey McBride, the first tight end drafted. I really did think there was a chance that he might fall to us with our 4th round selection, but not meant to be, I guess. And Sam Laporta, the second tight end, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, both drafted almost a full round after Josh Allen, even though I think that Patrick Mahomes should be getting drafted ahead of Lamar. Kenneth Walker, Travis Kelce, 3rd tight end drafted, Ramondre Stevenson, Devonta Smith, Malik Nabers, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf. Would have loved Nabers, Cooper Kupp, Alvin Kamara as well, but we get sniped on Alvin Kamara. Oh well, happens sometimes. DJ Moore is still there for what it's worth, but I've talked about DJ Moore. Like, I see the scenarios where he's not the number one running wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. Like, it could be Keenan Allen. There's so many more options this year in terms of targets as well. I don't think the volume will be there. So typically, I feel like I find myself looking elsewhere for wide receivers, or if I'm going to select one of the Chicago wide receivers, I think Keenan Allen might be the slightly better value. So here, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. I think that he is in a good situation. I think he's being overlooked because he's not that, rushing heavy quarterback, but that's all right for me. I think that he is still a tier 1 guy. So here, I'm going to go tight end. Question is, do you like Mark Andrews or Dalton Kincaid more? I believe we're going to see a tight end run here. And, whether it's this round or the next, you got to get a little bit comfortable with reaching when you're picking at the extremes. Personally, I know Mark Andrews has the proven track record, but I'm going with the upside. I'm going with Dalton Kincaid. You could argue he's the top pass catcher for the Buffalo Bills. With Mark Andrews, I'm worried about his health. I'm worried about the health of Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is not that elite of a passer of the football as Josh Allen. So basically, Dalton Kincaid here is going to be our pick. And I do think we're going to see some other tight ends drafted for what it's worth. So let's take a look once more at what has taken place. And after our Dalton Kincaid pick, Stephon Diggs, Montgomery, Mark Andrews, Anthony Richardson, Kyle Pitts. So yeah, a couple tight ends. Keenan Allen, Zay Flowers, Aaron Jones, George Pickens, T. Higgins as well. I was hoping one of those guys might fall to us. That doesn't happen. Christian Kirk, Zamir White, another pipe dream, C.J. Stroud, DeAndre Swift, Kyler Murray, Najee, George Kittle, Jalen Warren, Evan Ingram. So yeah, after our Dalton Kincaid selection, 4 other tight ends were drafted. James Conner then with the pick right before us. Wouldn't have minded James Conner there either. So here, what I'm considering, Terry McLaurin is probably at the top of my list. Other names, maybe somebody like a Deontay Johnson, somebody like a Calvin Ridley. Tight end, we've already got that position taken care of. Running back wise, I think Zach Moss could also be, in consideration here. So probably what I'm going to do is let's go with Terry McLaurin. I get it. He's going to be our number 2 wide receiver. A little bit of a drop off there. Jake Ferguson, Joe Burrow. Let's see what other wide receivers there are here. I'm probably going to go with Calvin Ridley. I do think that Tank Dell, can be more of a home run hitter, but in my opinion, just way too many mouths to feed there in Houston. And I do think he could be the number 3 option behind Diggs and Nico Collins. So I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley. I think he can overtake an aging DeAndre Hopkins. We'll see what the Tennessee Titans do, but they paid up for Calvin Ridley. So, I feel fine here. He's a flex play for us. Let's add him to the squad and see what else we can do at running back, at wide receiver, etc. So, there's a big run on running backs. Let me show you here on the draft board. So, we're looking at it. After Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Dak, Zach Moss went, so couldn't land him. Jonathan Brooks also goes. Jordan Love, DeAndre Hopkins, Raheem Mostert, another guy I was considering, Tank Dell, Zeke, Tony Pollard, Brian Robinson, Jaden Reed, Hollywood Brown, Tyjae Spears, Deontay Johnson, Javonte Williams, Singletary, Jerome Ford, another guy that I like, as a late round stash, especially when Nick Chubb's health is a huge question mark, then Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. So now we've got our starting roster taken care of, and at this point we can just go straight, value. And I do think here, Gus Edwards, potential starter for the Chargers, they're going to run him. His competition is J.K. Dobbins. That doesn't worry me too much. I'll probably go Gus Edwards here. He's a bench guy for us. Who else gets drafted? Jordan Addison, Christian Watson. I think there's something to be said about Austin Eckler as a pass catcher at this point in time. If this was standard, I wouldn't be looking at him. But for full PPR, I think he's still going to be utilized somewhat. And we need some running back depth. So let's go in that direction. Yeah, I'm going to go with Austin Eckler. And then afterwards, I think we can load up on some wide receivers and feel a little bit better about our depth there as well. So a name that I did like, Lad McConkey, was drafted. That's okay. I think somebody like a Brian Thomas, a high upside rookie, we can consider. A Keon Coleman, a Curtis Samuel, a Josh Palmer, all names that I would not mind. So let's just start loading up on them. I mentioned Brian Thomas first, the number 2 opposite Christian Kirk with no more Calvin Ridley. I'm going with high upside rookies at this point in time. So Brian Thomas is our first selection, then another wide receiver. We could go with, take your pick, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel. I feel like every other draft I go with Curtis Samuel, then Keon Coleman. So I guess this will be the rookie wide receiver show. We'll go with Keon Coleman. And then we're going to make one final selection and see what our draft grade is. I think here it was a situation where we got sniped a couple of times, and personally, I don't love our running back depth, Kyron Williams, Rashad White. I probably would have gone with, again, a Bijan or a Breece Hall if this was the real deal, and then easier to get some wide receivers later on, like in the second, third round. I think there were still some really good values. But either way, another mock draft in the books. I think that there's still something to take away from this one. Here, I think Brendan Cooks, I mentioned him before, the number 2 in Dallas, but we've already got CeeDee Lamb, so I'm not going to overdo it. Let's see, Josh Palmer was selected, so we're not going to get a chance to go with him. I think we can go with, looking at these names, it might sound kind of weird, but TJ Hawkinson is a guy that maybe he comes back later on in the season, depending on what happens, and you have him in your starting lineup. But I've already got Dalton Kincaid, so again, I'm not going to overdo it there. I think we can go with I'm going to go with Mike Williams here as my number 2 wide receiver. The injury history, not my number 2 wide receiver, but as my last bench wide receiver, the injury history does scare me, but I think that offense is going to be pretty good there for the New York Jets. So let's draft him. Let's see the situation. We get an A+ grade. I don't agree with that. Maybe this is just personal bias, stuff like that. I'd put this draft grade kind of in the C range. But hey, that's just me. Maybe you agree. Maybe you disagree. Let me hear it in the comment section. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.